Pegasus Resources is exploring and developing uranium projects. The company is focused on its Jupiter and Energy Sands projects in Utah. These two projects are neighbors, located just 3 kilometers from each other. I'm a big fan of nuclear power and uranium, given its strong long-term demand growth profile, along with prior years' underinvestment in uranium projects globally. As well, Pegasus projects are located in Utah, the world's most mining-friendly jurisdiction, according to recent Fraser Institute rankings. I'm very happy to have CEO Chris Timmins here to tell us about the story and the opportunities for Pegasus. I'm Martin Gago with Market Radius Research. It's Thursday, August the 8th. Please remember, this is neither recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Chris, thank you for joining us. How are things going? And please tell us what's going on at Pegasus.
Hey, Martin. Pleasure to meet you and looking forward to it. Pegasus Resources, we're here finding uranium. That's really the sum of it. We're out looking for uranium and we're focused on Utah, and that's what we're doing.
All right. Yeah, you've got your deck here. Show us where and what you're doing in Utah.
Sure. Okay. Well, we're Pegasus Resources. You can follow us at pegasusresources.com on the web. So I am Chris Timmins. I am the CEO of Pegasus Resources. My background is actually originally in oil and gas industry. So I spent over 20 years in the oil and gas industry before I moved over to here as a CEO of Pegasus Resources. We've got Dave Bissonette. He's our CFO and he does our corporate secretary work for us. We've got Mr. Derek Strickland, who's a PGO with over 35 years in the industry. He's been part of the PDAC as a director, and he writes basically 43101 reports and all that stuff as his daily job. So a very experienced gentleman, really understands the industry. Noah's the young gentleman in the company. He's an entrepreneur, engineer, and engineer in training, I should say, and just a young gentleman with a passion for mining. Down at our advisory board, we've got Jody DeRouge, who's been in the industry for well over 25 years. Great gentleman, very knowledgeable. Again, a geologist. He owns DeRouge Geological Consulting, and he's a great member of our advisory board. We've got Mike Magrum, also another excellent advisor, over 50 years in the industry, mostly focused on uranium. He was part of the Northwest Territories mining district up there. He was also part of PDAC as well. Mike's actually been in uranium. One company he worked for, Exemplar Energy, he was the chief operating officer, and that company reached an excess of $1 billion in valuation. And that was a uranium company. So Mike's really been around the industry. He's had lots of success through the years. We have Doug McFauld. He's on the regulatory side for us. He really just keeps us pointed in the right direction and giving us all the great advice we need to stay on side with the regulators. So again, we have a very strong board, honestly. Board of directors and our advisory board, we're very happy to have all these gentlemen. The experience and knowledge they bring to this team is just amazing, and we're lucky to have them. On to our share structure. We've got 28.5 million shares outstanding with a totally diluted of 30.8 million shares, 30.8 million shares. I'm stumbling on that one. So again, we got a great share structure here. So we're looking forward to just getting out there and exploring for uranium. I won't spend too much time on the uranium story. I think most of us at this point really know that what's going on right now is the supply problem. There's just not enough supply right now to feed the demand that's going on. And while the supply is lacking, the demand is continuing to grow. Every day, every week, there's more news coming out about extensions of older reactors, and new ones are going to be built. And then we've got SMRs coming into the mix as well. So we see a real long-term trend here of just needing to increase supply to meet that demand that's coming down the line here. And we want to be part of that. As you can see, power demand just keeps going up and up and up, which is, again, another reason why we need more nuclear energy to help fill in the gaps that we already have and to help offset all these renewables. Their ability to produce 24 hours is non-existent. So we need to have this baseload power, and nuclear energy is obviously going to be part of that mix, in my opinion.
It makes sense, like on a baseload basis, nuclear power, especially as they need to sort of take out the coal and more so the coal, but then the natural gas as well, which is a little more flexible. And then all the AI data centers that are being put up are really screwing up everyone's electrical demand forecasts, where it's just blowing all the demand figures out of the water. So we've got some challenges, and it sure looks like nuclear is the way to go.
Well, on that note about coal, is actually the Department of Energy's actually got a list of 290, 300 coal-fired plants, and they want to find a way to convert them over to nuclear. So it'll save, a lot of money in the long run if you can take existing infrastructure and convert it over to clean nuclear. So yeah, back to that, we can get rid of coal and replace it with nuclear, and we won't even have to do a whole bunch of like infrastructure build out. Just take the coal infrastructure, turn it over to nuclear. All right, on to our projects here. So we are focused on Utah. Our first project in the area was our Energy Sands project, which we staked and own 100% of. You can see on the map here, Utah is one of the only states with two mills. One's operating, one's being talked about being brought back online here. And Western Uranium, our neighbor to the east of us, they're proposing to build a mill just 6 miles up the road. So we're in a great district. We've got the infrastructure there. We've got mills in the area. So we know there's going to be lots of activity here, and we're just glad that we have a place at the table.
Well, and I think as well, being in an area where that's sort of nuclear and uranium friendly, where it doesn't sort of like, you have to be obviously careful with it, but where people don't get overly upset about it. It's a very manageable risk, and they've got the experience there, so it looks good.
Yeah, and it's an agreement state too. So you only deal with the actual state. You don't have to get the federal government involved when it comes to the nuclear side of things. So it makes your permitting and stuff a lot cleaner and a lot easier to get done, and it cuts down on the timeline involved. So yeah, Utah is great. Right in the area we're in, there's lots of activity going on, and getting permits and everything has just been pretty straightforward for the most part.
You mentioned it's an agreement state. What do you mean by that?
It just means that you're not dealing with just the federal government. You're just dealing with the state level. So when you're dealing, like if you're not in an agreement state, you have to go to the federal government and to the state governments. So it just doubles your paperwork, and it doubles all the regulatory side of everything. So having it be agreement state just kind of streamlines everything for us, and it's just simpler to deal with at the end of the day. Less people to deal with, and then regulation wise, it's streamlined. So it's just really great for just getting things done at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So this property here, our Energy Sands, is actually a past producing property. So we have high confidence that there is more uranium on this property. When the production shut down here in the 1950s, it wasn't because they ran out of uranium. It was just because the prices weren't favorable. So they moved on from this area, and it just never got brought. They just never came back to Energy Sands. That doesn't mean there wasn't mining and production still going on in the area. There just wasn't any done on this Energy Sands property at that time. Because once we get into it later on, you'll see that there was actual work going on to the north of us and to the east of us, production-wise. So this area has been producing right up until the 1980s. So this is our Jupiter claim map and our Energy Sands map. As you can see here, the Jupiter project is actually pretty exciting. What it does is it gives us a really advanced database here to work on. We have all this historical drilling data for the property. Our drill hole count now is up to 190, closer to 200 and growing. We're still digging through some databases and stuff that we have access to just to find all the drill holes. So what we're doing right now with this is we're just getting all the data put together. We are going to amend. So we had a drill permit started for Energy Sands. I'm going to back it up a little bit here. So we had a drill permit already started for Energy Sands, and then we made the Jupiter project acquisition. So what we're doing is we've stopped moving forward with the Energy Sands permit, and we want to amend it to include Jupiter. So what we want to do is move the majority of the drilling that was going to be done at Energy Sands, move it up to Jupiter. We see it as a better advantage, money spent, to go up there and actually define a resource, whereas at Energy Sands would be more exploratory drilling. So ideally, we want to go up, put most of the drilling onto Jupiter and really just define a resource up there, because the potential to do that, as you can see right up here in this zoomed in part, this close cluster of drilling that has the potential to turn into a resource. The drilling is tight enough spaced. So we're actually working on putting it into a model ongoing. We've been doing this for a little while now. And we're going to take that data and we need to use it to amend our drilling permit. So that's what we're right in the middle of doing right now, is really just getting all the data compiled so we can get this drill permit finalized and resubmitted and get the project up and drilling here as soon as possible.
You've got the data from those drill holes. Are there still assays and core samples in a warehouse somewhere that you can sort of validate things, or?
No, actually in this area, most of the drilling was what they do is they did dry hole drilling. So they just drill a hole down and then run a probe down the hole and you get all your uranium readings and stuff from that, right? So we're not actually, like, even when we go to drill here, we're not going to do any diamond drilling at this stage. We're going to do the reverse circulation drilling, dry hole, and we're just going to drill the holes and then we can probe them and we can get all our information from that. And that's totally acceptable. The information we collect is viable and we're good to go. So we don't need to do that. And it actually speeds up the process for us too, because now we're not waiting on a lab to come in and take 4 to 6, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, you know, really depends on how busy they are. So this just really gives us the advantage to drill, probe, and get the information right away, which is why once we get drilling, we're very confident we can develop a resource before the end of the year, just on how quick we can collect the data. And it'll be just a matter of processing it in a proper format.
Gotcha. And the historic drill results and they're down the hole probing of it. Do you have to redo that or just validate a certain proportion of it, or their database, the historic database, is in pretty good shape?
Good question. So when it comes to proving out into a resource of the historical data, what you do is you have to twin certain percentage of the holes on the property that you're trying to put in. So let's say we take this cluster here, and we'll just make up a number right now for the sake of the conversation. We'll say there's 100 drill holes here. Though we'll go in, we'll evaluate it, and we'll have to twin 15 to 20% of those drill holes. So 10 to 15 holes on 100, we'll say. We twin those, and those ones will help prove it out. But if there is holes that are already open, which there are on the property, there's still some holes that were capped, and we believe that we can go in and actually rerun the probe on those holes and confirm the data that way. So that'll really help us out getting a really detailed view of what's going on, and it's very cost effective. Running a probe is a lot cheaper than drilling a hole.
Well, and even you're doing RC drilling, which is a whole lot cheaper than diamond core
much
drilling.
Cheaper.
So
much cheaper. Yeah.
And just since we're talking about drilling here, maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves. Roughly how deep are the holes, or like how far down are you going?
We're anywhere from, I'm going to talk feet just because we're down in the States and it's easier to keep my frame of mind. So we're looking at anywhere from 300 to 500 feet of drilling per hole, just depending on the area. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So fairly shallow at the end of the day. Fairly shallow, fairly quick. And costs to drill in Utah are about half what they are in Canada. So, and RC is actually a little bit cheaper. I haven't got the most recent numbers in yet, so I won't quote any, but we're about half what it costs in Canada to drill. And even when you work in the US dollar conversion rate, which is, you know, up there right now, it's still cheaper for us to drill down there than it would be in Canada. So it's even cost effective with the US dollar way it is right now. This is just a map showing some of the geology in the area. It's more focused on energy sands. You can see that we're into the salt wash member is really where we're focused on. So that's really that runs the same for Jupiter as well. So here's just some data, what we have done with the property. So as you can see back there in 1950 to 56, there was the past production on the property. We actually staked more land in 23, and that grew the property by 160%. January, we did our mapping and sampling project on the property, which was great. It was an excellent program. We gathered so much knowledge of the property. It was very great, and honestly got a lot of attention for us. And I'll get into those results in a second, Martin. And then in Q2, we actually did the Jupiter acquisition. We acquired some historical drill data for Energy Sands. And we started the preliminary model for the mapping and sampling of the Jupiter project and Energy Sands. And the permit is ongoing at this point. So basically, we're just at the point now where we want to drill in Q3. And that's our goal, is to get up there and drill this project. Q3, maybe Q4, it really depends on, you know, getting the financing closed, getting everything tendered, and then getting the crew on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, we're already basically halfway through Q3. It's a little shocking,
Exactly.
but
So it's
yeah,
looking Q4 more and more every day.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it'd be surprising. Like if we can get this financing closed at an ideal time, we could actually get this done in September. So it's not an impossibility. Obviously, every day it goes by, we add a little more time, but we're striving to get this done as soon as possible. So, all right. So this is the ground sampling program we did at Energy Sands in January, and this is what really got a lot of attention for us and into the markets. We actually had a grab sample come back at 18.87%. This actually excited even some of the locals in the area. And through this ground sampling program that we had, it's actually how we ended up getting introduced to the gentleman that owned the Jupiter project. He saw this news release, he saw what we were doing down there, and he got in contact with us actually. And we spent a few months talking back and forth, and we put together a deal, and we ended up getting the Jupiter project off of them. So that's kind of how things roll, right? We do a ground program up there, we get great results, it excites some people, and all of a sudden we've got a great property with Jupiter just through doing some work on the land and getting the news out there. And on top of that, this ground program, we actually came back with 11 samples of over 1% uranium, which is very impressive. As you know, high grade uranium in the USA is 1%. If you're out in the basin, if you're not over 10%, it's kind of meh. It's not high grade. It's just average. But the actual grade for the basin is 1%, by the way. That's pretty much the grade across the board when you start doing the math. But down here in Utah, you really just want to find a consistent grade of 0.15 to 0.3. So when you do your resource, if you can get anything between that 1.5 and 0.3% uranium, you're smiling, you've got an economical deposit as it stands right now. So we're very excited with these numbers, because if you can drill some of this stuff, it's going to really bring your grade up when it goes to do your resource estimate.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump back up to this slide real quick. So this historical Energy Sands, back again, when we did the ground program, we had another gentleman reach out to us, and he actually had historical drilling data for our Energy Sands project. So we acquired that data from him, and it actually came back some really strong numbers. We actually had one of the intercepts was 1.87% uranium, great numbers, 2.16 uranium, and a 3.41. So those are some really excellent numbers. So we're very excited to get down here to Energy Sands and see if we can follow up, we will follow up on this historical drilling.
Yeah.
So just to give the drilling some context, this is the area where all those drill holes came off, was right here. And with the ground program that we did, it's indicated to us there's a Paleochannel. So what Paleochannel is, it's basically just a riverbed that's been filled in with sediment over the years, like hundreds and thousands of years. And when the fluids get mineralized, when there's mineralized fluids moving around, they get trapped in these paleochannels and these little circular deposits. So really what we're looking for is paleochannels and pod style deposits. And what we're seeing here at Energy Sands is a paleochannel. So what we want to do is go down there and just drill this line out. Because if this turns into being fully mineralized, we're going to have a very, exciting amount of uranium on this property. And again, with the grades that we were seeing with the historical drilling, we think there's something substantial here. So we now think that we have Jupiter Sands. I'm making up names now. We got Jupiter with all its historical data that shows that there's uranium on the property. We got Energy Sands that shows with historical data there's uranium on the property. So really all we need to do is prove these pounds up, and then we have resources. I mean, I think we're on the path to an easy 3 million pounds. And I say easy just because it's just going to take drilling to really find it. So between Jupiter and Energy Sands, we see a path to get 3 million pounds through drilling and going through the historical data. Our final, we want to get way more than 3 million pounds, but this is really a good start. If we can get 3 million pounds, going out and acquiring some more land in the area would be next on our docket. And there is opportunities in the area to do just that. So again, we've got the potential here to be a real player in the uranium industry and to hold real pounds inside this company. And not many juniors can say that. Most of us are out here searching for the initial deposit. we found deposits. We just need to prove them out. So that's kind of where we're at as far as our energy sands go.
You haven't drilled it, but it was historically drilled, and you've done some geo work at surface, and you've got a concept for that. It was these paleochannels, old riverbeds that were filled in with sediment.
Yep.
And I couldn't see on it was a little small on my screen here. Those higher grade drill results that you got historical. What is the length on those? How long are the intervals?
Yep. So the intercepts are around 2.5 feet, which is actually
Okay.
pretty good. Like you don't get there is some big, there's some really wide intercepts and long intercepts out there. But for
Yeah.
the most part, you're in that 1 to 2 feet, and it's because they're all seams, right, running through the
Yeah.
ground. So when they get in there and start mining, it's actually kind of funny. So for the probe and snow mine, those they built resource estimates for those. They're all done internally, so there's not like a 43101 resource estimate on those mines. But what
Yeah.
they did was Atlas Minerals is the company that owned them. So Atlas Minerals, they actually went out and they just did surface drilling to see where they wanted to drive their mine shafts to do. So they have the probe mine. They're like, okay, where are we going to send the probe mine to once we've drilled out, or sorry, mined out this ore body? So they do surface drilling and find it all. But when it actually comes time for them to producing these deposits, they were getting back with the probe snow mine. They came back with 281% increase in in uranium recovered versus what they saw with the surface drilling. So it's kind of exciting to see this information. So let's just say you prove out 1 million pounds on surface. Historically speaking, when they went underground to actually mine that 1 million pounds, they recovered way more than what was indicated on the surface. So when you're down there and you actually start mining the projects, we really expect to see these numbers increase. And what we do then is like, I'm going to jump ahead into the future. You've got a mine, you're on Jupiter, and you really want to see what's there. You underground mine it. So you start drilling underground and you start shooting out vertically instead of horizontally. So you start going across it, and then you get a better read on the mineralization because you're actually following the seam with the drill bits. So really what you're seeing on surface is what I'm saying, it doesn't always represent what's under the surface. And in most cases in our area, this underground represents a larger amount of uranium, not a smaller amount. Obviously, everything has to be proven out and it's all speculation. But historically speaking, in this area, what you see on surface is just an indication, and what under the surface is much larger. So it's very encouraging as far as, moving your project forward, going, okay, well, we see this, but what's really under the ground could be way higher. So I find that exciting.
Yeah. Well, it is. And mining or exploration really is an application of statistics. You're taking a bunch of samples and, okay, if we got this here and that there, we'll assume what's in the middle. And until you get under there and dig it out, you don't know what you got. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not as good.
Well, and that's the perfect example. When we did the grab sampling program across the Energy Sands property, we had all these great numbers come back, but they're surface samples, so they're selective. We actually go out and we want to find the best rocks on the property. That's the whole point. You want to, you're trying to figure out where you want to focus your attention. You've got this big land package, but you really got to find out where to focus your attention. So you look for all the best stuff. But when you come back with your best stuff and it's, you've got an 18% uranium return, a whole bunch of 1% and above, that's exciting. Like, hey, there's something here. But then you actually get some historical drill data on the property that you didn't even know was out there. And it comes back with excellent numbers too. So this is really what we're dealing with down here is very exciting. And I can't wait to get drilling because I think we're going to come back with some great intercepts. We're going to come back with some high grade uranium numbers. And I think the market will love it.
You've recently announced the acquisition of the Jupiter project, the Energy Sands. You staked yourself, and then retrospectively, you got lucky and found someone else had drilled it, and you got some data for that as well. On the Jupiter acquisition, can you talk about the terms a bit, like NSRs and royalty or payments, and just clarify what that looks like?
Sure. So the Jupiter project, when it's all said and done, we're going to own it 100%. So
Okay.
basically, we're going to end up with Energy Sands 100% owned by Pegasus Resources, Jupiter 100% owned by Pegasus Resources, which is ideal. That's what you really want if you're going to try and move projects forward. You want that full ownership of the projects. To get Jupiter, we issued 2.2 million shares to the vendor. We commitments of 100,000 in payments to him for the property. And then we have we have milestone payments. So basically, every time we prove up a 43101 resource of 500,000 pounds, we're going to issue the gentleman $100,000 in milestone payments for it. And that milestone payments go up as high as 2.5 million pounds. So he will get a total of 5 milestone payments in the event that we actually hit the 2.5 million pounds. If we hit 2.5 million pounds, I'm more than happy to give him his milestone payments, because the value of those pounds in a resource, this is not just saying they're there. They actually have to be inside a resource estimate for the milestone payments to be paid out. So if it's there, we're going to be very happy, and so will our vendor. So that's really the terms of the agreement.
Okay, that seems quite reasonable. All right. And yeah, you're very uranium focused, but you've got some other historical projects on the books. What are those ones, and what's the plan for those?
Sure. We actually do have one more uranium project on the books here. It's our Paleochannel project in the Athabasca Basin.
Yeah.
So this one's in the northern part of the basin. The area in general is not overly explored. Like, that southeast corner is really where everybody focuses their attention. We're getting some more over to the southwest now too as well. But the north stuff's really just starting to get active. So this property here, we're going to do some work on it this year. We want to get a gravity survey done up there. So we are going to do a little work to this property, and that's just part of keeping it in good standing with the Saskatchewan minerals and stuff. You have to do a certain amount of work every year to 2 years to keep the property in good standing. So we're going to do the work required to keep that property, and then we're going to see what we do with it. Really, I'm loving what we're doing in Utah. So I'm not sure what the long-term outlook for this project is. We'll do something with it. Obviously, we've put a lot of work and time into this. So we'll find something to do with this property, whether we work it or we hand it off to someone else to keep it moving forward through an option or a joint venture. We're going to look into those things. But right now, we're going to work it this summer and then just see where we go from there.
All right.
This project's actually historically drilled. It's got a lot of historical work done to it. Denison Mines actually drilled it in the late 70s and early 80s, and they actually found anomalous uranium. As you can see here, it's nothing that get excited about in the Athabasca Basin, but it really does show that the potential of the property to host a real, like a sizable deposit. So there's all the indications here. There is a deposit in the area. Obviously, the person will have to go drill this, see where the deposits are. But this project does hold a lot of potential, and we're very glad we have our hands on it, even if it is just a joint venture down the road while we focus on Utah.
Yeah.
As you can see, we did do a radon survey on the property. One of the highest returns was from Denison's drilling was a 0.15% uranium. So again, encouraging number. In the basin, that's not something you get excited about, but it does tell you there's something in the area worth following up.
Yeah.
This is just some stuff from the radon survey. The radon survey said we should really focus on this area. Denison's drilling that they did was actually just south of this line. So when we talk about drilling this property, we're actually going to basically straddle some of these Denison holes is what we'd recommend gets done. Straddle some of the Denison holes and follow up on what this radon survey said. Our gravity survey that we're going to do will define these targets even more. So get the gravity survey done and we'll really be able to tighten up where a person should be drilling this property. And then we have our Golden project in British Columbia, which is actually 3 properties. This is again one that we're going to own 100% of. And it's got some really encouraging numbers, some great high-grade copper, high-grade gold, some high-grade silver results. So we did do a ground program in 2023 on the property up at Punch Bowl, and we got some good results back. We're not probably going to work on it in 2024, but in 2025, we do want to get up there again and do another ground program or possibly do some drilling. We're still kicking it around and what's the best way to do it. Drilling is going to require permitting, which is still kind of up in the air for BC at this point. So we'll play it out and see how it goes, but we're definitely going to get up there and do another program and just really keep working on this project. Long term with this project, I honestly want to spin it out at some point in the future. We have a little more work to do to get it to the stage where we can do that. So we're going to do that work and just set the stage. And at some point, if we spin this out, I think it'll make all our investors happy, because when we do spin outs, existing shareholders get a piece of that spin out through their percentage of shares that they own. So, you know, it varies depending on how the deal ends up being structured, but anyone who's an investor of Pegasus Resources in the event of a spin out of this property will own a small piece of that as well. Yeah. So it's a good opportunity, you know, a little dividend, as you say.
But you've got those assets. You'll add the appropriate amount of work before you JV or spin them out or whatever.
Exactly. We'll do something productive with them that all shareholders can, you know, be happy with, including. So that's really the goal.
And then keep your focus on the uranium projects, and people like seeing that focus. Okay, that's great. Chris, got some questions from the audience here. Long term, are you looking to take advantage of the existing mills in the area versus building your own?
There's lots of mills in the area saying they will take mill or from the companies in the area. So in the event we do get to that stage, we are being told that there is opportunities there. Long term, it's a little far out there. I mean, we're going to develop these resources. I really just want to secure the pounds. That's really what we want to focus on. Like a lot of people are talking about going out and doing get a base resource and then go right into production. I don't want to do that. We all know how the cycles go. I mean, if this cycle has a slight pullback, kind of like what we're seeing right now, at the end of the day, I want to get the pounds secured into a resource estimate. This is what's important to me. Getting those pounds into a resource estimate, then we can go to the market and decide how the best way to develop these projects would be. Processing mill in the area, there's going to be 3. There is opportunities there. I think we're going to see some other stuff happen in the future too, because if Utah really takes off with the amount of people that are working the land down there, we're going to need a 4th mill at some point. Really, is the only way it will work to, you know, really handle what could be coming in to production in the area. So there's a lot of opportunities here. Like you said, we can use the existing ones, or we can, you know, see what happens with the one being built out in the future. So I think we'll see that. It's just, this is going to be 10 years plus, in my opinion. Like we got a huge build out to do to really get supply to catch up to demand. And I think Utah is going to be involved in that. Wyoming's going to be involved in that. Obviously, New Mexico and Texas and all those ISR projects, they're all going to be involved in that. But I think hard rock's going to make its appearance. I think hard rock's going to get traction, and people are going to see the value in going in and just doing the hard rock mining. It's a lot simpler to set up. I mean, cost-wise and everything, to get a hard rock mine set up over an ISR. ISRs are, you know, arguably probably more cost effective, but they're a little more front loaded. So, you know, it's for us, we think hard rock's got a place in the market, and we want to be involved in that.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. There'll be a portfolio of all sorts of different types of projects there. You talked about the resource, but a question here on, you mentioned Jupiter had a lot of delineation and was approaching full-scale mining. I'm curious how far it did approach. How quickly can you define a resource on there? I think you mentioned that earlier.
No, actually, that's a great question. I'll cover the first part. So the probe mine is just to the southeast of Jupiter. That mine, the original setup was, so all this stuff in the area was actually owned by Atlas Minerals at one point. I would recommend anyone who's really interested in the area, just Google Atlas Minerals and just get a view of what this company did. There are almost 3 generations involved in Atlas Minerals, like the family involved. There's like 3 generations of them that were running this right from the 1950s right into 1982. So the original plan with the probe mine was Atlas was going to take the probe mine and push it to Jupiter and mine Jupiter. So they did all the surface drilling that we were talking about earlier. that was enough for them because they're all doing it internally. They're not doing resource estimates. They're not worried about going to investors and showing them, look, we got the data and stuff. They're just about production. So they did all this drilling just to expand their own resources in-house. So they made them very conservative because, you know, the guy writing it doesn't want to be blamed for, you know, overextending the company on a project that wasn't viable. So that everything was done conservative, and they were going to produce Jupiter. It was on tap to go into production. And the only thing that stopped it was the crash in 1980s of the uranium price, and the whole area shut down, period. Like, it was done. And we're just starting to see signs of life again here now in 2014 or 2024. So yes, the area was going to be mined, and our Jupiter project was next in line to be actually produced. So again, very encouraging for us. Did I answer that goal there? I think so.
Yeah, and then just to clarify, how quickly could you define a resource if things go well?
So yes, so back to that, we need to drill 10 to 20% of the holes. So if we'll make up a number of 100, it's in that area. So we do that. Drilling could probably take about 2 weeks, bar any hiccups, weather, all that stuff. We can probe the holes. We can start, that probe data is available immediately. So then we just got to process all the data. So realistically, we can have all the data compiled within 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks of actually doing the drilling. And then it's just a matter of putting it into the resource. So we think coming out of 2024 with a resource estimate at Jupiter is feasible and very likely.
Oh, all right. So within 6 months, given where we are in the year,
by the end of the year, yeah.
Okay.
And obviously, this isn't going to be a 2.5 million pound resource estimate. We're going to just aim to get the first 500,000 just to prove up that the original 500 is there. And while we're doing that, we'll actually be able to expand from there. So we'll do the first 500,000. That'll show that the project is viable, and then we'll grow it from there. And honestly, we believe the 2.5 million pounds in milestone payments will be set up is achievable goal. Like, we didn't just pull that number out of the air. We've looked at this data, and if the data backs it up, obviously through drilling and future work, then we're in a good place.
You also referred to this as well, but to get clarification, are you looking to become a producer yourselves, or looking for the projects to eventually get acquired?
I wouldn't say no to producing. I think at this point, my main focus is really just getting those pounds into the resource estimate, and then we can kind of work from there. Going right into production is a huge cost. And I really think at this point, we should just focus on getting the pounds into the company and then see where the market takes us. I would love to produce these myself. I mean, I think that'd be exciting, and I think our investors would love it. But if it makes sense for us to do it, it has to make sense for us to do it. So if in the future it makes sense and we can get our hands on the technical side to make it all happen, I'd happily do it. But for now, I just want to get the pounds into the company.
So far ahead until you need a resource estimate before you can start planning the next steps.
That's it, right? You know, if you don't have enough there to go into production, you're just, you know, it's a nothing. But we think there's something here, so we're very excited.
For sure. Does the trend at Jupiter seem to run down to Energy Sands? Do you have a sense of how they're connected?
Good question. Actually, so in the area, there's two different trends that happen. Again, everything in there is like paleochannels, pod style deposits. So you don't get a lot of like super large scale deposits. You get a lot of smaller ones. So you get like a 500,000 pound deposit, and then next to it, there's another 500,000 pound deposit, kind of things like that. But what the general trend is in the area is northeast, and there is another trend that runs to the southwest. So basically, there's two different trends, like almost like a cross on the property. So Energy Sands is down on the lower end of the cross, and then Jupiter's on the upper end of the cross, and it has another trend running through it that goes to the northwest.
Okay.
So there's two trends there, and we own a chunk of both of them.
Gotcha. And the 3 kilometers between the two projects, is that owned by someone else, or is that sort of non-mineable or not able to explore it? What's the status of those 3 kilometers?
Combination of private companies and some mom and pops, so private individuals own some of it. And there's
Yeah.
actually several deposits that we know of between Energy Sands and Jupiter. So at some point we will want to have conversations with these people, because we've kind of made it a situation where everyone between us kind of trapped now, because there's really not a lot of land when you actually look at it. There's not much land between Jupiter and Energy Sands that someone can get their hands on. It's going to be hard for someone else to come into that area and actually get a sizable position in there. So we're really hoping that we can keep building our relationships with the mom and pops and the other companies in the area. And as we progress, we can get talking with them and then see about bringing those deposits in, because that really would really take us to the next level. If we can get our hands on all those deposits, we now have a large land package and it's mineralized all the way through. You can go pull up maps and stuff and you can see through the historical data that there's definitely deposits in the area. And at some point in the future, I'd love to get our hands on them. But again, our immediate focus is just getting these first couple million pounds into the company, because that's going to just really let the market know we're serious. Like, we're not here trying to just build the news of the day. We want to build a company at the end of the day and get this company as big as we can and grow it as much as we can with the people we have involved. And honestly, we've got a great shareholder base right now. A lot of stocks have been beat up pretty bad in the uranium sector and in general. And honestly, we've performed quite well. Like, we've held up really well. I'm impressed, honestly. It just goes to show you that we actually have a lot of long-term investors that are willing to give us a shot and see what we can do. And that's really who we want involved. We want to just people who want to give us a shot. We want to build a company. We want to find pounds, and then we're going to do something with them that makes us all, rewards us all.
Yeah. Okay. I guess, do you have any perspective on relative valuation where you are versus other guys in the market? Just back of the envelope here, thumbnail, it looks like you're pretty good value, so to speak, for shareholders coming in at this point.
Really, if you look at what we're doing and the board we have, so you look at our board of directors and you look at our market cap and you look at the projects we have, there's a lot of value left on the table. We're around 4 million market cap. Most of our peers are double that, honestly. And it's so really I think there's some value on the table. I mean, or we're fair valued. It's so hard to tell in this uranium market right now, because the valuation's like all over the place. Like, you're looking at some companies like, why are they so cheap? They have great assets. And you look at other companies like, why are they so expensive? They don't have great assets. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the investors have really just got to figure it out on their own. But I think we've got a great story here. It's not complicated to understand. We're going to just, define the resource that we see there through the historical drilling, go down to Energy Sands and take that historical drilling and that we saw there and just build off of that. And I think by the time we're done, we're going to have the pounds in this property that'll really just show people, we're real.
Yeah. You mentioned this earlier. You have a financing that's open, so you're raising a bit of money here to do the drill program with, and you're getting.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to raise a little G&A, and then really we're going to put most of the cash that we raise into the drilling, because that's really what makes this company grow. If we can't get out there and drill, what's the point? I mean, we have a great project. We're out raising the money right now, and everything's going good. Like, there's an appetite for uranium investment still out here.
Yes.
People are cautious. Don't get me wrong. There's still some caution in the markets, and people are being cautious with what they're doing, but there's still an appetite. So we're going to go out there. We've got lots of interest, so I'm feeling good.
Any final words you want to leave with people, sort of to what areas to focus on, or what perspective to view Pegasus at before we wrap it up here?
I think you really just go look at what we're doing, go look at what our peers are doing, and just compare us and see what you think. I think that's really the best thing you can do. As I said, we're really just focused on securing pounds into the company. That's where we see the potential here. Not many of your people are really focused on securing pounds, so that kind of gives us a standout. I think it's a good thing. So many companies come into these cycles and leave them with nothing to show investors. They come in, the stock price moves around a little bit, They raise a bunch of money, and when it's all said and done, there's nothing left. I want to come in, raise the money, drill, and have us come out of this with resources. And that's really the goal. I think resources are really what shows the market how serious you are. And we want to be serious.
All right. Well, Chris, with that, thank you very much. I look forward to getting you back here and getting updates as you move the ball forward, start drilling and getting some data on the project to prove out what you got, what the vision is there. So thank you very much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, and I look forward to doing it again. I had a great time. Thanks, Martin.